There were 14 missed calls from her and 0 voicemails. I didn't mean to leave my phone on silent all night. Or maybe I did. Somewhere in that murky space between anger and pride, I guess I made a decision and forgot to tell myself. It was still raining when I woke up. Light, annoying rain. The kind that doesn't drench the streets, just lingers on windows like a second thought. Her side of the bed was made. That wasn't normal. She never made the bed on weekends. Not once in 7 years. The bathroom smelled like citrus and hairspray. Her curling iron was still plugged in. The towel on the floor was soaked, like she'd dropped it in a rush. There was a wine glass in the sink, half full, lipstick ring untouched. That told me everything. She left angry. And she expected to come back before I noticed. The last thing I said to her the night before wasn't even a sentence. I just looked at her. She stood by the door for a good 10 seconds, like she wanted a fight, or an apology, or something. But I gave her silence. She gave me the click of the door and the sound of her car reversing out of the driveway. I should have followed her, or called, or texted, but I didn't. Instead, I sat in the living room with the lights off and stared at a wall I'd been meaning to paint for 4 months. I heard the clock in the kitchen tick too loudly. I counted how many times the fridge made that humming sound. At one point, I convinced myself that this was nothing, that she'd be home by midnight, slightly tipsy, apologizing half-heartedly, the way she does when she knows I was probably right. Only she wasn't home at midnight, or 1, or 2:37. I checked. By 3:11 a.m., I stopped pretending to sleep. I sat by the window, watching the street like some desperate movie cliché, waiting for headlights that never came. She came home the next morning wearing someone else's hoodie. And the moment I saw it, I knew. Not because of perfume, or guilt, or lipstick. Because I had seen that hoodie before. But never in this house. It was navy blue, with a faded orange logo on the chest that looked like a tiger mid-roar. I'd seen it once before, months ago, when she posted a group selfie from some after-work trivia night. He was standing next to her in the background, glass raised, wearing that hoodie. I remember zooming in on the photo back then. Something about his face bugged me. Not because he was handsome or threatening, but because he looked like the type of guy who memorizes astrology signs to manipulate people. That guy. The I'm emotionally available until you need me to be guy. I remember asking her who he was, and she just laughed and said, "That's Owen. He's married. Relax." So when she walked through the door wearing his hoodie and tossed her keys on the table like it was just another Sunday, my heart didn't break. It calcified. I didn't say anything. I just stood there in the hallway, like I'd glitched, like my software froze, and I was waiting for the next update to make sense of the moment. She looked tired, not hungover, not wrecked, just emotionally emptied. Her eyeliner was smudged slightly, her lips dry like she'd forgotten to drink water all night. She glanced at me and said, "I didn't want to wake you." No apology, no explanation, just those 7 words. I nodded, not because I believed her, but because I didn't trust myself to speak yet. I turned and walked into the kitchen, where the fridge light felt like an interrogation lamp. I wasn't hungry. I just needed to stand in a place that wasn't next to her. She followed, slowly, leaning against the doorway. I could feel her watching the back of my head. He offered me a ride. "I left my jacket," she said. That was her story. That was what she opened with. I still hadn't said a word. She shifted uncomfortably, maybe expecting me to explode, or accuse, or cry. But I just reached into the cabinet and grabbed the coffee beans. Grinding them gave me something to do with my hands, even though I already knew I wouldn't drink the coffee. The sound was loud, mechanical, and clashed horribly with the silence between us. "I didn't cheat on you," she said. Those exact words. Not nothing happened. Not I swear. Just a dry, flat statement. And I realized something in that moment. She wasn't trying to convince me. She was testing if I already knew. I looked at her for the first time since she walked in. Not at her eyes, not at her lips. I looked at the hoodie. The sleeves were too long for her. She kept pushing them up like they annoyed her. And then I noticed the tag sticking out the back, the dry cleaner's tag. Not his hoodie. Borrowed, given, returned. This wasn't random. This was orchestrated. I finally spoke. My voice didn't even sound like mine. "Is he married?" She blinked. Slight panic flickered across her face. Not shock. Panic. That confirmed more than any answer ever could. And then, in the quietest voice I've ever heard her use, she said, "Not anymore." I didn't respond. Not right away. My brain tried to catch up with her words, but they just kept echoing. Not anymore. It wasn't just what she said. It was the way she said it. Like it wasn't new. Like it wasn't a secret. Like it was already fact, and I was the last to find out. I stared at the countertop for a solid 10 seconds, maybe more. There were crumbs from the toast I never made, her car keys next to the sink, and her wedding ring still on. I wanted to ask 100 things. When did this start? How long has he been not married? Did you wait for him? Or was I the placeholder until he became available? Instead, I asked the stupidest question of all. Did you sleep at his place? She didn't flinch, just looked at me like I was naive for even needing to ask. "No," she said. Then she paused, like she was deciding whether to leave it at that or offer the full sentence. Eventually she did. "I slept at Talia's. I just didn't want to come home." That hit harder than any confession would have, because it wasn't about him anymore. It was about me, about something she couldn't say but wanted me to feel. I felt it. God, I felt it. Like the ground under me had shifted 3 inches to the left. She walked past me and headed upstairs. No hug, no sorry. No, "Do you believe me?" Just the soft sound of her bare feet on the steps, fading. I stood there in the kitchen for a long time, listening, waiting for something. Maybe the creak of the bedroom door, maybe her calling my name. But there was nothing. Just me. And the silence between us finally loud enough to hear. The first lie is always quiet. It doesn't wear a mask or carry a knife. It just sits there, waiting to be noticed. And that morning, it was sitting right next to the sink, disguised as an empty toothbrush holder. I didn't even notice it at first. I was brushing my teeth when I glanced over and realized something was missing. Her purple toothbrush. The one with the worn bristles and the chipped handle. Gone. Not replaced. Just gone. I checked the drawer. Nothing. Cabinet? Nothing. I even checked the little overnight bag she keeps under the sink. Empty. It felt stupid, irrational, to be hung up on something so small. But it felt intentional. Like she took it with her. Like she didn't plan on brushing her teeth here. That detail sat with me all morning, louder than any argument we could have had. She came downstairs around noon in her robe, hair still damp, acting like we were in some kind of post-fight cool-down. The kind where no one says sorry, but everyone pretends it's over. I made eggs. She made coffee. Neither of us made eye contact. "Are you working today?" she asked, as if the last 12 hours hadn't happened. I said, "From home." She nodded. No follow-up. No, "How are you feeling?" Just a quiet sip from her mug as she stared out the window like someone waiting for a train that was never going to arrive. I watched her. Everything felt different. Even the way she sat was unfamiliar. Legs crossed in the opposite direction. arms folded tighter. She looked like someone occupying a house she didn't own anymore. At one point, I asked, "Are you going back to work Monday?" She hesitated, then said, "Probably." It was the kind of answer that confirms everything and nothing at once. That night, I checked her phone. I know how that sounds. But curiosity doesn't feel like betrayal when trust already left the room. She was in the shower. I had maybe 4 minutes. I didn't want screenshots or proof or text threads. I just wanted a name, a pattern, a hint. But the inbox was clean, too clean. No recent messages, no unsent ones, nothing in the deleted folder. Even her pinned chats were gone. She had scrubbed it. What she didn't scrub, or maybe forgot, was her Maps history. There it was, 3:58 a.m., a location pinned and unpinned just minutes later. Not Talia's apartment, not her parents' place. A random street I didn't recognize in a neighborhood we never go to. I memorized it, screenshotted it, then deleted the history again so she wouldn't notice I'd noticed. That night, I laid next to her and stared at the ceiling while she slept peacefully, breathing slow, one arm over her face. I could smell his cologne on her hair. Not hers, his. And that was the moment I realized I wasn't asking myself if she cheated. I was asking myself how long she's been planning to leave. I didn't sleep that night. I stared at the ceiling long enough to memorize the cracks in the paint. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw that pin on the map, 3:58 a.m., on a street she's never mentioned, in a part of town she pretends doesn't exist. By morning, I'd already looked it up. It wasn't a house. It was a small apartment complex behind a strip mall. No fancy gate, no doorman. Just a rusted bike rack and 4 mailboxes leaning sideways. A place you don't visit by accident. I didn't say anything to her. I wanted to. I really wanted to. But I knew if I pushed too early, she'd just twist it into something smaller than it was. That's her move. Minimize, deflect, pivot. So I waited. Around noon, she left to run errands. No explanation, no specific stores. Just grabbed her purse and disappeared. The moment her car turned off the street, I opened our laptop. A while back, I helped her set up shared locations with me in case of emergencies. She probably forgot. I never brought it up. But when I checked, the dot started moving, and then stopped. Same street, same building. She was going back. I stared at that blinking location for almost an hour, my chest tight, not from jealousy, but from clarity. Something was happening, something deliberate. She wasn't confused. She wasn't lost in emotion. She had a system now, a rhythm. Like this was a routine. When she finally came back, she had nothing with her. No bags, no receipts, no groceries. Just a new energy I couldn't name. Lighter, colder, like she had let go of something while I was still holding it. She kissed my cheek, said she might nap, and walked upstairs like everything was normal. But I knew it wasn't, because this time I was the one keeping a secret. I sat on the couch for a long time after she went upstairs, not scrolling, not reading, just staring at the blank screen of my phone, holding it like it had something important to say, but was too afraid to speak. I had typed out a message to her earlier before she left for errands. Just 4 words. "Where are you going?" I never sent it. I kept it sitting there in drafts like it was watching me, judging me for being too scared to press send. Now I was the one keeping tabs, the one hiding my thoughts. And the strangest part? It didn't even feel wrong. It felt like I was finally catching up to the version of her she wasn't showing me. I wasn't spying, I was surviving. Later that evening, she came downstairs again, in sweatpants and a t-shirt like nothing had happened. She asked if I wanted to watch a movie. Her voice was light, too light, almost forced. I said sure. I let her pick. She put on a comedy we've seen 3 times already. Safe, harmless, predictable. Halfway through the movie, she leaned her head on my shoulder. I felt her warmth, her hair brushing my jawline, and I froze, because it didn't feel like affection. It felt like strategy, like a move made to hold a piece on the board. I waited until she was asleep to get up. Quiet, slow, barely breathing. I went into the office and sat at her laptop. She always forgets to close her tabs. She had 3 open. One was a Pinterest board titled Studio Living Ideas. That hit hard. Studio, not office, not guest room, not redesign. Studio. The second tab was a rental listing for a small apartment. No pets, no utilities included, available immediately. The third was a draft email to someone named Kay. Just the beginning of it. 1 line. It's not about cheating. It's about wanting something I don't feel guilty for. She hadn't sent it yet, but she had written it. I heard the floor creak upstairs and quickly closed everything. Sat there in the dark, staring at my own reflection in the black monitor. And that's when it hit me. She wasn't waiting for me to find out. She was waiting for me to let her go. The next morning, she made pancakes. She hasn't made pancakes in almost a year. I don't even like them anymore. She knows that. Still, there they were on the counter, stacked high, golden, picture perfect, with strawberries on the side like she used to do when things were good, when we were still trying. I sat at the table and watched her move around the kitchen like nothing was unraveling.
Her tone was cheerful, maybe too cheerful. She talked about going to her sister's in a few weeks, asked if I wanted to join. I nodded without thinking. I didn't mean it. It was muscle memory, polite autopilot. We ate in silence after that, and something about the way she avoided looking at me felt like a conversation we weren't having. Every small thing had weight now. Every glance, every pause, every fork scrape against the plate was a signal or a warning. After breakfast, she left for yoga. That's what she said anyway. I didn't track her this time. I didn't have to. I was done chasing clarity she refused to give. Instead, I went into our bedroom and opened the closet. Her suitcase was missing. Not the carry-on she uses for weekend trips, the big one. The one we only take on long vacations or major life changes. I checked the back of the closet, under the bed, behind the storage bins. Gone. That's when I opened the drawer where she keeps old journals. She guards them like a vault, but the top one was slightly out of place, like it had been rushed back in. I shouldn't have, but I opened it anyway. Only 1 page had writing, dated 2 weeks ago. Just 1 line. I wonder if he'll hate me more for leaving or for pretending not to. That line hit harder than any confession ever could. It told me everything I needed to know. She's already halfway out. And the scariest part wasn't the leaving. It was the acting, the performance, the pancakes, the conversations, all of it rehearsed. Later that day, I sat in the living room while she napped upstairs. I didn't touch my phone, didn't turn on the TV. I just sat there listening to the walls. And for the first time since this started, I asked myself something I hadn't dared to before. What if this wasn't just about her? What if I drove her into silence without ever raising my voice? She left 3 days later, not in the middle of the night, not during an argument. It wasn't cinematic. There were no slammed doors, no suitcase dragging across the floor, no sobbing. Just a quiet morning, a zipped bag by the front door, and a note on the kitchen table that started with my name. She didn't blame me. She didn't blame herself either. She just wrote that something had changed and she had ignored it for too long. That trying to patch it with routines and silence had only made the distance grow louder. She said I deserved someone who didn't feel like they had to perform to stay.
and she needed to figure out who she was when she wasn't shrinking to keep the peace. It hurt, but it didn't shatter me. I didn't chase her. I didn't text. I didn't stand in the driveway waiting for her to look back. Because for the first time in months, something in the air felt honest. Sharp, yes, but clean. I stayed in the house, cleaned it top to bottom, donated clothes I hadn't worn in years, painted the wall in the hallway I'd been ignoring, pulled down the curtain rod that always tilted to the left. I even pruned the lemon tree in the backyard. There was a moment, a few weeks later, when I opened the drawer in our desk and found a key I didn't recognize. Just a small silver key with a red tag. It didn't belong to anything I owned. Attached to it was a note in her handwriting. It simply said, "In case you want to see it for yourself, 612A. I looked it up. The studio apartment. The one from her search history. I went. Not to catch her. Not to beg. Just to see. It was small, sunlit, and smelled like lavender and fresh paint. There were 2 mugs on the counter, a folded blanket on the couch, a record player humming something soft in the corner. She wasn't there, but on the windowsill was a plant I gave her years ago, the one she always said she'd never keep alive on her own. It was blooming. That night, I went home, sat on the porch, and watched the sky turn gold. I didn't feel abandoned. I felt something else. I felt free, not from her, from pretending everything had to stay the same to be real.